Welcome to the GOYA Gatherings podcast, a serene and inspiring space where the worlds of yoga and wellness converge. Every episode is a journey into the heart of yoga, offering you deep insights, uplifting stories, and practical wisdom. Our conversations are designed to inspire your journey and illuminate your path to well-being. Please remember that the views expressed by our guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of GOYA Gatherings or its hosts.
So welcome to the podcast, Rob. I'm so happy that you were able to be here and to join us. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you. It's an honor to be here with you. And really excited to have a conversation and serve your audience.
So for those people who maybe don't know who you are or haven't read the blurb that we have here about you, you work with Uscreen for Uscreen, which is an online platform that hosts the classes for people to be able to build their online streaming platform, essentially. And I wondered if you could share a little bit about how you ended up at Uscreen.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of by just some like really awesome doors that were open and a bit of chance as well. But yeah, so I've been in sort of marketing and software marketing for probably about 10 years now. I started my career in tech with a company called Thinkific. I was there, joined as a customer support and answering emails and tickets and things like that for the platform. And I was there for about 5 years, kind of moved in from support into marketing and then partnerships and overseeing affiliate programs and influencer marketing programs. And then had an opportunity to work with a company that was more in the YouTube space, Mark. And so it was a company called TubeBuddy, and basically it was an analytics software for YouTube channels. And you could test your thumbnails and come up with the right titles for your videos and stuff like that. So I was there during the pandemic, the 2 years of the pandemic, basically, and grew. It was an exciting role. And then I met the guys at Uscreen. I met PJ Tai, who's the CEO and founder of Uscreen, while I was at TubeBuddy, and we did some collaborations and, built a relationship. And the opportunity came up to take on the partnership program here at Uscreen. And, within a couple of weeks, I was like, yeah, let's do this. And so I've been here now for about 3.5 years, Mark, and just enjoying it, just really loving serving creators and folks that are packaging their knowledge to really serve their community through memberships. And it's just been a blast, just been a real blast.
Could you tell us, what is a day in the life of Rob at Uscreen?
Yeah, it really varies, Mark. Some days I'm here doing calls, meeting partners, meeting our customers. Some days I'm doing a lot of emails and Google Docs and strategies and budgeting. Some days I'm in different cities for conferences or hosting a dinner for some of our VIP partners and customers. Last week I was in Las Vegas. Next week I'll be in Orlando, and so it really is quite a varied schedule. There's no 2 days is the same. But we're also a fully remote team, Mark. So, schedules and things like that, our days can really vary just because we're trying to align with, maybe a team member that's, in Portugal or, things like that. So, never a dull day out here.
That's the way to keep it though, right? Keeps it interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Before we jump into kind of more of the specifics that I wanted to talk to you about in terms of like community building for people who have an online platform or are hoping to build some sort of online following, I wondered if maybe I could ask you about how you at Uscreen, because you just mentioned that you are a remote team as well, like how have you gone about building an sort of internal community and culture at Uscreen?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's not easy, right? Because, you don't get the, in-person sort of, there's a difference, right? When you see somebody in person, you meet people in person, you can kind of read the body language and, there's things that you pick up that you can't necessarily on a video call. But I feel like we do a good job. We're all on Slack. Slack is our head office, at Uscreen. And so we have, different channels. It's really open doors. There's no private channels. You can jump in to a conversation about something. And, that culture is definitely there. People are approachable, from C-suite, all the way down. And so we do a lot of meetings. We get a lot of virtual FaceTime with different team members, and it's really encouraged, right? And so I think that's really important. We also have weekly calls. We have all hands. Like this morning, we have a monthly all hands call, kind of giving company updates and what's going on, wins, highlighting different team members, celebrating anniversaries, that sort of thing. And there's it's not just all work, right? There's ways that we also have fun. Different teams will have their own sort of like team building events and team building things, virtually. But then also our head office is in Washington, D.C. And that's where, our CEO, our CTO, our CMO, most of them are there. And so regularly, quarterly, there's different team members teams that are flying into Washington, D.C. to get together, have some FaceTime, spend a few days together, kind of strategize, brainstorm, work on things, but also do some fun things, team building in person. So it's definitely a hybrid type of setup, which is really good. The other thing that we try to do, and this is kind of a big part of what I do here, is that we are going to lots of conferences. And so typically it's, different combinations of team members attending events and conferences. And so that's another opportunity for us to meet up in person, have some team building, and then also meet sort of, our community of customers as well. So, we definitely try to make a concerted, intentional effort to build those relationships.
Do you think that's one of the things that maybe sets Uscreen apart from other similar companies because I love that you mentioned the focus is not just always on like work, but it is also about getting together and being with different people. Because from my experience, Uscreen is very different in many, many ways, all of them great ways. But I have noticed it seems like even the culture to the consumer is very different as well.
Yeah, no, thank you. Appreciate that. It's, we try not to take ourselves too seriously. I think maybe that's maybe one of the things is that, it's just encouraged to make the connections, right? And build that community, like be really hospitable, just all of those like values, and we are a platform that, it's, for our customers, it's really good for them to have a community that they build. And so in some ways, I think what we are also trying to do, and it's not a strategy or anything, but I think it's also something that we're trying to practice what we preach, if that makes sense, of like, hey, like, our customers should really have a strong community, and they do have really strong communities. And so I think what we're trying to do is also sort of lead by example in that sense. And, hey, like we can easily go to conferences and just do work and not see anyone there and not see our customers. But it is just what we do. So we'll go to, we're going to go to Orlando. We went to Las Vegas last week for a conference. We'll look at our database and see, hey, who is in Las Vegas? We'll post in our community, hey, who's going to this conference? We want to grab dinner with you. We want to grab breakfast, coffee with you. We just want to get to know you, and I think that's just hopefully it does feel different for the customers. And it's something that they're saying like, hey, there's something different about Uscreen. That's great to hear, and it's not something you can measure tangibly. I'm sure you guys probably do this as well. It's not something you can really measure tangibly, but it's just the right thing to do. And, we're not here to have a customer for a month, we're here for the long term. And so I think that's why these relationships are really important, and this community building is vital for, I mean, not just our company, but any company that's, serving any customers, right? So yeah.
Totally. Do you find that there's been a shift since the pandemic in going back to these in-person community connections, or sort of community networking more in person now? Or is it more of a kind of a healthy balance between the two, online and in person?
I think there's definitely a shift. Yeah, I've felt it for sure. During the pandemic, obviously you couldn't do anything, and you're kind of locked up at home, and that's, you're doing a lot of things online. Even the last maybe a couple of years after the pandemic, it's not really, people were still kind of hesitant, but I did feel probably for the last year, maybe 18 months, and then definitely this year, there's way more in-person events. The events seem to be bigger. There's more people attending. I'll tell you a story. One really sort of aha moment for us was that last year we were like, hey, let's see, we're some people are saying, hey, when is Uscreen going to launch a conference, and we're like, oh man, I don't think that's within our capacity for now as a team. We're a lean, mean team, but that's a lot of work. And so we're like, hey, let's test into that though. Let's even see if people would be interested. And so we're like, let's pick two cities where we have a lot of customers. And so we picked Los Angeles and London. And let's see if we can even get 20 people to show up. Like if we have 20 people, 20 customers that come and like hang out with us for a few hours, that is such a win. And so we did that. And in both cities, we had, I think, 40 to 50 customers show up. And we're like, hey, like, I guess people want to come and connect. And this is not any sort of brag about Uscreen at all. It's not really even us that they wanted to meet. They wanted to meet other people that were also running membership businesses, because it's such a unique type of business that it's not easy to, even in my city, I don't know anybody in my city that has a membership business, right? So people are kind of yearning and like really desire to just talk to somebody that understands what they're also building, and just pick their brain, share ideas. Hey, what's working for you? What's not working? Like, hey, well, what did you do when this happened? And it was just like so beautiful to see people come together for that. And so we did 2 last year. We're going to do 4 this year. And so hopefully it's going to be something that we just continue doing. But yeah, people really want to get together in person. That, not to say that the online, like obviously virtual community and online programs, I think that really helps both sides. It really helps sort of solidify a lot of those relationships. So then when you go back home, then, those relationships online are just much stronger.
It's true. It's funny you say that, because I've been part of a lot of yoga retreats in the past, and there's always a really interesting connection you make with people when you're there in person, and then the online connection you have afterwards feels different. It's not better, it's not worse. You know more about each other. There's kind of a way of speaking between you that starts to shift a little bit, is more familiar. And I think that balance you're talking about is so important. Like, obviously, not everybody's lucky enough to be able to meet up in person. So, and hopefully I can ask you of some ways a little bit later on to cultivate more and more the online connection of community. But yeah, that balance between the two forms is, I think, so key.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Having a balance is so good. And yeah, I mean, the thing is like the in-person, if you're meeting up in person, you're making an effort to have like these in-person meetups and like, events and, gatherings. You really do have to think about the online version of that, or the follow-up. Like, there's sometimes that, we go to conferences, and some of them are big, some of them are like a little smaller. But, there's a couple of them that I've gone through over the couple of years, and there's no sort of follow up. It's kind of like this flash in the pan of like, hey, we'll get together this one time. We had amazing 2 days. We got to learn from each other. And then there's no like natural sort of, community online where we can continue the conversations or continue getting to know each other, or sort of learning from each other. until the next conference the next year. And so there's just some missed opportunities in that sort of model. And sometimes I'm like, oh man, I wish they had something where we can like plug in online in between the big conference each year. So yeah, it's just really important to make sure that you're thinking of that online aspect, because people will fly home and they had a really good couple days, and then a few days later, a couple weeks later, it's like kind of faded. That all that momentum.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So a lot of our listeners are yoga teachers who are very likely thinking about starting, online classes or offering their teaching online. Are there any trends that you've noticed amongst creators in the last year or so that you think is going to be making a shift in the way that people offer their services and their skills online?
Yeah. There's just so much more content nowadays, Mark, on YouTube, on Instagram. People are sharing tutorials, they're sharing, workouts, and they're sharing so much content already. And so there's no shortage of content. In terms of how people are showing up now, I feel like it's access to the coach, the instructor, the thought leader that people are really looking for. It's access, and it's also connection. So, we've been talking about community for about 20 minutes. I think that's a huge part from what we see anyway, with our customers that have memberships, is that, their members will sign up initially because they want maybe some type of, content that's more organized, in playlists, or there's no ads, or, versus YouTube where there's ads, or, exclusive content or members only. It's content first, but then they stick around because of the connections, right? And so the community, the people that they get to meet, that access, that closer proximity access to the instructors, or the people in the instructors world, and so I feel like that's becoming more and more the trend. In terms of creators, I feel like also they're not as concerned about a big subscriber count, getting a YouTube play button, or 100,000 subscribers. I feel like they're being more they're just being more strategic in how they build their business. So even if, we've got customers that have, a few thousand subscribers on YouTube, a couple thousand followers on Instagram, but behind the scenes, they have a really strong business, because even though it's a smaller audience, they've gone really deep with building that trust and relationship with that audience, that audience is willing to invest in their products, whether it's a membership or a course or coaching, retreats, high ticket retreats, right? Things like that. And so it's not so much more of like maybe during COVID times where people wanted these big audiences and vanity metrics. Whereas now I think creators have become more sophisticated in terms of how they run their business, and matured in their strategy, that they've figured out a way to focus on the revenue streams and like their email marketing, the foundations, the fundamentals of business, of like lead generation, email lists, right? Things like that, that they're able to build really successful businesses behind the scenes, even with a quote unquote smaller audience, and that's kind of the trend I'm seeing.
So it's like quality versus quantity.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Great way to sum it up. Yeah.
The way you described it too, it sounded like people are creating or cultivating the in-person experience more online, where, for example, with a yoga class, you'd chat with the instructor, there'd be time afterwards maybe to ask some questions, or to just check in and see how everyone's doing. And it, like you said, it seemed that when COVID started, it was more just like get it out there, get the class out there, get the content out there. But now that people are starting to think more about how can we have a similar experience, cultivating this form of community in an online setting.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. The sessions are there. Like, people expect they sign up for a yoga membership, they're going to get yoga sessions. But then the instructors are adding the personalized touch. Maybe they join, they do a live stream a little earlier, and they just have like, hey, what's going on with your day? I'm also seeing a lot of the memberships kind of, yes, there's this core topic, let's say yoga or Pilates, right? And then they'll also talk now sort of like the surrounding topics, like, hey, what's your meal plan? What's your work-life balance? What does your weekend look like? What's your sleeping habits, and things like that. How do you balance work life? And so there's this core topic that people are coming for, that's sort of expected, and then they're adding layers to that the audience, their members, are also interested in, which is great, right? I mean, I think it just becomes, the more you sort of layer on some of the topics that's complementary, then, it's sort of a no-brainer for the member to stay subscribed, and so the retention is low. Oh, sorry, the retention is high and the churn is low, right? Which is the goal for any membership business.
Totally. You mentioned YouTube, and I think sometimes, especially people in the fitness industry, when they think, oh, I'm going to start offering online classes, their mind goes straight to YouTube. Now, you said a really interesting thing, which was that there's a lot out there. Like, there's so much content on YouTube. You can't be sure of the quality sometimes. And then you also highlighted that people are starting to offer more services that are in the sphere of what it is that they do. And I don't know that YouTube particularly is set up to offer those types of things. So I wondered, do you see kind of the benefits and the downsides of doing the YouTube thing?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I mean, the way that we actually see YouTube or Instagram or any content platform is that it's very needed. We're not Uscreen is not we're not designing Uscreen. We're not building Uscreen to replace YouTube or any of those social platforms. It's actually to complement what creators are building on those platforms, right? Our most successful creators, they have really strong YouTube channels or social channels. And so the way that we look at it is that the YouTube, Instagram, all those are discovery channels, right? So that's where you will be discovered by an audience that would be interested in what you have to share, right? And that's how those platforms are built. That's how the algorithms are being built. That's what YouTube wants. They want watch time, for example, so that they can serve ads to these viewers, right? And so they want those videos to work, and they want people to watch your videos because that's how their business works. Now, as a creator on YouTube, there are monetization, streams there. There's AdSense, YouTube Partner Program. If you do, there's even subscriptions, right? There's YouTube memberships, right? Live chats, super chats and things like that. And so there's ways there. And I think YouTube has done the best job in terms of all the other platforms to share that revenue with the creators, right? You look at other platforms, they're definitely not sharing the revenue with them as much as YouTube is sharing AdSense revenue, which is great. It's good. Now, that said, there are creators that then say, well, I have videos that blow up, and, there's big video, both large creators that have viral videos or videos that get, hundreds and thousands, millions of views, all the way down to the smaller creators that don't get as many views. They both feel the struggle of not getting paid enough by YouTube, right? If you're big, you're like, man, I put 100, hundreds and thousands of views, and I got paid, a few $100s or whatever it may be for this video from AdSense. Or there's small videos or small creators, and they say, man, I spent like a few hours on this video, and I got, a couple dozen views. That's maybe a few cents in AdSense.
Yeah.
Right. And so So that's not a good thing, right? When creators don't make money, they don't have sustainable revenue streams, and they're not able to deliver and serve their viewers there. And so now they're forced to look at affiliate revenue, right? Maybe selling merch, selling products, digital products or physical products, coaching, consulting, right? Now the creator's mind goes to, well, I got to make money somehow with my content. How can I do that? And so that's where Uscreen comes in. To be honest, Mark, we kind of come in terms of like the life cycle of a creator, or much later in the life cycle of a creator for monetization. There's other monetization revenue streams that creators will explore first because they're just easier, as you know, if they're smaller or if they're just starting or growing. They'll explore affiliates first, maybe coaching and consulting. Maybe they'll create a single course versus a monthly membership on Uscreen. Maybe they'll do services. Maybe they'll create a course first, right? That's easy. It's just one time. Let's put it here, right? Maybe they'll do something that's like more of a donation based kind of thing, like Patreon perhaps, or something like that. And so, we understand we're not privy to like sort of thinking that we are going to be for everyone. We kind of come into the picture a little bit more down the road when they're more established. And so to your question, yeah, we love YouTube. We love those platforms because it allows our creators to build an audience then they can then promote their membership to. Yeah. And so hopefully that's how we're coming off, hopefully.
What advice would you give someone who's like, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to start a online yoga studio or online fitness studio, and they have no idea where they're going to start?
That's a good question. I would probably start for yoga specifically. If you're listening and that's you, I would probably start on Instagram. I find that Instagram is much easier. I'd probably start on Reels, really quick, short, and build your following on Instagram. The reason I say that is that YouTube is probably where I would love for you to end up. Because YouTube is, again, just long form videos. People are searching for videos on YouTube. So although it becomes a little bit more competitive so that you show up, when people are searching for, yoga videos or yoga sessions, people are searching for it. So the intent is much higher on YouTube. Whereas on Instagram, you're trying to disrupt somebody. You're competing, right? There's this feed on Instagram, and you're competing with other creators on there. But it's shorter videos. It's easier. You don't have to put as much production value into it, right? And you can start building an audience there. Once you start building an audience there, you would then send them over to YouTube, right? And create a long form library of content on YouTube, where the shelf life is going to be much longer. So I would, if I was personally me, I would start Instagram, YouTube. While I'm doing that, everybody should have, and if you don't have this in place yet, is start an email list, right? Mm-hmm. No matter what you're doing. Start an email list. It doesn't have to be complex. You can set up something on, say, Substack. You can set something up on MailChimp. Like, these are free platforms to start with, right? And you should create some type of lead magnet, whether it's a PDF guide or a checklist, just something that you want to make sure that you're starting to build an email list for yourself. If you really want to be serious about building a business, as an online instructor, as somebody that has an online business, then email list is a must. Like, you just have to do that. And then that way you get discovered by your ideal audience on Instagram or YouTube or any other platform. And then you say, hey, by the way, if you want more information or if you want more resources like this, you can subscribe to my newsletter, and I'm sharing value every single week, right? And then that way you have an email list. And then when you decide to then maybe launch a course or start a membership, then you have this list of people that are already locked in and engaged with you and getting value from you through your email newsletter every single week or every single month. That's really it. I mean, that's how I would begin, and and then you get more complex as you go.
No, that's like a free masterclass in how to get it going, which is so. I mean, a lot of people are really unsure of those first steps to take because it is so overwhelming. Like you said, there's so much content out there. Well, the question we get a lot of times is like, what could I offer that's different? And I mean, the reality is just you, like offering what you do is different than anybody else. And you offered some really great, actionable, like easy to follow kind of first steps that might get someone launched on that path, which is really cool.
Yeah. I hope so. One thing I was thinking is also, as you're saying that, is that you during this part of it, and even as you get more established, is really talk to your audience and understand what their pain points are. So Mark, I see a lot of creators. That's why, it's one of the first revenue streams that even I suggest to creators I talk to is offer coaching, consulting, right? Because then you're able to do sort of this one-on-one before you start a one-to-many, right? So a lot of creators will want to go to one-to-many, meaning like them teaching lots of people at scale. It's just not possible because like you don't know what you're solving. Like everybody has you're supposed to solve a problem. That's the best way to build a business, is that you have to solve a problem. And coaching consulting is the best way to like really dive into trenches and hear people's problems that they see you as the solution for. Like you can help them with that solution. So email newsletter, offer coaching, right? There's tools like Calendly where you can say, hey, by the way, if you want to jump on a call, here's my Calendly, and you can charge for these calls, right? 30 minutes, 45 minutes, and they can just ask you anything. And then that way, or you can offer it for free. It's totally up to you. But the main thing you want to get out of that is for them to tell you what their problems are. What are the pain points? What's the issue? And then for you to then determine if that's something that you can solve, and is that something that you can solve and enjoy and build a business around. And then as you're able to do that, then you can figure out how you want to solve that. You can solve that through a number of different coaching calls, right? What I find, Mark, is that people then say like, man, I'm having the same calls every single day. Everybody has the same problems. So then that's when you lean on technology to say, okay, well, maybe this problem is coming up so often. I'm going to create an on-demand way to answer this problem. That's where courses come in, online courses come in. And so then you're like, hey, awesome. You know what? This is the issue that you have. This is the problem that you have. Here's a pain point. You can go to my course, right? Go to my course. It's going to be cheaper than my hourly rate or my coaching rate. Go through that. If you still would love to hop on a call, then they can do a coaching call with you. But now you've figured out that, okay, I can solve this problem. I can help people with this. And then you're going to package it so that it is scalable, right? So then that way you can spend your time on other things. You can build other courses. You can build something else. You can focus maybe on content. Maybe you want to add on a podcast like you guys have, but you want to lean on technology, but you want to make sure that you know exactly the pain point that you're solving. Otherwise, you're doing a lot of work without probably either helping anybody and hitting the right, hitting the nail, or you're kind of running around and kind of spinning your wheels a little bit. So
I think that motivation too is so important. The motivation of why you're doing something, and a lot of people, especially in the wellness industry, the drive to be involved in it is to help people. So if you really find out what it is that people are needing, and then you can fill that space, I think that's a win-win for everybody. And long-term sustainability in terms of work, because it is a lot of work when you're doing something like this. But if the motivation and the reason for doing it is there, I think that helps sustain you long-term and just sets you up for success, I imagine.
Yeah, it's a good point, Mark. Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be sometimes lonely, like, you're building your business. And so, yeah, obviously money and revenue is a great motivation, but it shouldn't be your why. It shouldn't be the thing that kind of, gets you up in the morning. And as you do this, and I know you guys are as well, like as you do this, you start to learn like, hey, it's much more than that. I think this is sort of like a tangent, but I think it's really important to surround yourself with other people that are like-minded, that are also building businesses, even if whether it's in your space or not. I think it's just really healthy for entrepreneurs to do that, because there's going to be some days where you're going to feel like, man, this no wins here. It's hard to find a win. But that community, I think, will really kind of sustain you and help you get through some of those days. And so, yeah, so I think that's super important.
And that's another reason why I think Uscreen is so great, is because there's a community where other creators can get together online, and you mentioned about the in-person things that are starting to happen, but there's an online community for similar people to be able to connect, and I think that as yoga teachers as well, when you're teaching classes in person, it can be very lonely. You go to a studio, you teach a class, you leave, like you don't have that connection. So I think that yoga teachers are used to having to look for community, and knowing that when you're part of something like Uscreen, for example, that there's a community built in there for you to help support you is, to me, that's another win.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like I said, it's not something it's hard to measure, but I think it's just important. And it's also for us too. Like, we want to make sure we are also serving that community. We know our customers well. And I've been fortunate enough. I've got to meet a lot of our customers, and they become friends. And we text message each other. It just kind of goes to a different level, which again is just, we're all going to be working anyway, right? We might as well enjoy what we're doing. So
It's so true. It's so true. You may as well make it fun, because
yeah,
you're going to have to do it anyway.
yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Looking ahead for Uscreen specifically, and for you, you mentioned a little bit about what this year holds for you, but could you just expand on that a little bit as we start to wrap up? Like what's out there for you this year?
Yeah. So this year, I'm really focused on partnerships. And when I first started, Mark, here, partners were influencers that just happened to talk about memberships and courses, online courses, and stuff like that on YouTube. And over the last 3 years, been really cool is that we've started to work more with customers. We have some really incredible customers, and really like sort of shifting our mindset of like, hey, let's work with the people that we are already working with, that we have relationships with. They know our platform, they know Uscreen, they know memberships really well, and let's work with them. Let's not just sponsor them. I think sponsorship is like the easiest thing you can do. Is just like, let's throw some money and they'll make some content about Uscreen, and it's very transactional, which is not great. Not a good business approach, but yeah. And so we're like, no, let's sponsor them. Yes. But let's also like, how can we support them? How can we actually like partner with them? How can we, they have events coming up. Like, how can we support their events? For example, right now, Mark, there's a customer of ours. His name is John Gary. He is he's got a big Pilates program. He's based out of Illinois, and he's got a workshop that he is teaching to other yoga instructors. And he did this online during the pandemic and a little bit after. But now he's taking it on the road, and he's actually doing a 12-city tour, teaching this in person. And so we said, all right, John, we're going to support you. We're going to, sponsor this, but also we're going to be at every event. And so,
wow.
Yeah, so we have team members all over the world. We're remote anyway, right? And so like right now, as of today, my colleague Adair, who I work with, she flew into Miami because that's where the first event is going to be tomorrow. So she went to Miami. Gonna do a dinner with him. Gonna see his, we're gonna be at the event tomorrow, and she's gonna fly home tomorrow. Like just for him, right? And so that's the kind of things that we want to do. And again, it's super enjoyable, Mark. It's just like it's not a scalable thing, right? But I think that's just like we enjoy those things that are almost unscalable. I think, and so we're doing more of those kind of things. We're hosting our own events. I was saying a little earlier is that we're hosting 4 of our own Uscreen Connect events in London, Los Angeles, New York, and Austin, Texas this year. And so that's 2025. We've got other events happening. And then, business as usual with, myself here overseeing our affiliate program and partnership programs, and working alongside all the other teams, for, different campaigns. But we really just want to dig deeper into helping folks with recurring revenue through memberships. And that's, any way that we can do that is kind of what our focus is.
That's so exciting. I love that Adair just flew in for a day. That's so cool. She was one of the presenters at the conference last year. Right. So people who are listening might know the name and have caught it, but just to put a face to it. But that's so cool. I love that. It makes my heart so happy to hear that there's that kind of connection happening is so powerful.
I know. I was telling her, I was messaging her this morning. I'm like, I'm so excited for you. It's going to be awesome. Make sure you take a lot of pictures because I'm sure it's going to be so cool. So yeah. And then we've got James, who's on our sales team, because then next week it's in Tampa. So he'll be meeting up with John and his crew in Tampa next week. So yeah, it's cool. So yeah.
Well, Rob, thank you so much for being here today, but also thank you so much for sharing such helpful advice and ideas and sharing your wisdom, of all the wisdom you've garnered over the last few years that you've been doing this, because I think this is something that's really lacking out in our community, especially of how people can build this successfully and efficiently for themselves. And I think you offered us a masterclass in 35-40 minutes, and I'm eternally grateful for that.
No, thank you, Mark. No, I'm thankful for you and honored to be here. And hopefully, it's helpful. And thank you guys for being part of our community. It's been so good to get to know you. And we're excited for 2025 for you guys. And anything we can do to support, we're here for you guys.